Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking today about wholeheartedness. Many of us recognize an inner critic, and I want to assure you that using self-compassion to help you reach your goals will get you there faster. And I also want to define wholeheartedness for you. Something caught your attention about attending. And when I talk about wholeheartedness, if you've ever heard of Brene Brown, she uses this term a lot in being able to show up authentically in the world with both your good and bad, uh, feeling brave and confident and willing to go through experiences. And in order to do that, we must put perfectionism aside and really be able to show up authentically, just as you are. And we're all going to fail. And so I want you to have tools when we do fail on how to pick yourselves up quicker and easier. So, is this you? You have so many roles that you handle: mom, wife, small business owner, employee, daughter, woman, and you don't quite feel good enough in all of them. Perhaps you give too much of yourself that you aren't quite sure who you are anymore. You long for balance in your time and energy and can some days feel completely overwhelmed with responsibility. You wear a lot of different masks and aren't quite sure that you would feel completely comfortable taking some of those down. What would people think? You want things to be perfect before you really put yourself out there because you tell yourself things like, why does what I have to offer matter? And sometimes you'll hear, well, who do you think you are? You tend to go from thing to thing, activity to activity, to stay distracted, to numb yourself out for fear of slowing down and hearing the critical voice in your head that is trying to get you to lose those last few pounds, write that book you've been procrastinating on for so long, get those clients for your business, etc. Sometimes beating up yourself seems like the only motivation that you have. So it feels a little scary to give that up. And I want to assure you that there is a different way. I'm going to ask you right now to just settle in, stop checking your emails and texting while you're listening to this and multitasking like I know you can, and just focus for a minute. Take a real deep breath and close your eyes and picture yourself as a sweet, curious little child at about the age of 3. Be the adult that you are right now, and in your mind's eyes, reach out and hold the hands of that child so she's looking at you right in your face. Look in her eyes and tell her how precious she is and how much you want for her in this world. Let her know that you're going to be there for her no matter what, and that she is free to be all of who she is, to try anything that makes her joyful, and when she falls down, which she will, that you'll be there to pick her up and give her a hug. You'll reassure her that it happens to all of us and that it doesn't make her bad or stupid. It hurts when she falls, but you're going to be there to comfort her. So hold that vision of that little girl. That little girl is still a part of you, and you just experienced having compassion for her. So this is how this call is going to go. I really want to talk about what is the difference between self-compassion and self-esteem. How are they different? We think we need self-esteem, but I think there's some trips in that. So I want to define what self-compassion is. Let you know what makes it hard to do if you're not very good at it yet. And a lot of people do struggle with it. I want to provide you 5 real tips that you can take away to begin practicing this on your own after our 30-minute call here. And I also want to give you information for those that need help at a deeper level, being able to practice this type of work, about an upcoming experiential workshop to help you really deepen your skills. So who am I? I have always been really curious and sensitive, and as a child, that came out a lot. And I was raised by a perfectionistic, critical mom who was doing the best that she can. I developed a very loud inner critic inside, and to drown that voice out, I used substances like food, alcohol, busyness. I used perfectionism and more to avoid hearing that criticism in my head. At times, I would tell people, especially in job interviews, that I was very highly motivated because I was harder on myself than others ever could be. I wore that as a badge of honor, but it led me, to being lonely, afraid to let people see the real me, and bad relationship choices. The work that I have done personally has allowed me to have a relatively healthy marriage. We're all human, right? Deep friendships, a much more balanced internal life, and a level of self compassion that allows me to risk, to be vulnerable, to share my gifts with others, and to do all of this imperfectly and still be okay with that. I've been counseling others for the last 6 years and know that many women, especially, deal with a deep sense of shame for who they are way deep down inside, but have been pretty adept at covering that up. Carrying that level of self criticism, shame, fear, and perfectionism keeps us procrastinating on having deep relationships. We avoid putting our talents and gifts out there. We're weighed down by guilt and inadequacy, and often that creates a level of stress and physical and emotional ills that people walk around with. So let me start with what is the difference between self-esteem and self-compassion. Kristen Neff is a researcher in mindful self-compassion. I love her work. She defines self-esteem as a global evaluation of self-worth. So it's some kind of ranking. Am I a good person or a bad person? We tend to compare ourselves with others, and it sets us up to need to be special, puff ourselves up, and sometimes degrade others with these sarcastic barbs. It often is contingent on success, or for women, often appearance and handling our multiple roles. But what happens when we fail, which we all will? Our self esteem plummets. We can feel less than or unworthy. It is not always reliable. So here's where self compassion can work. Self compassion is compassion directed inward. It is being kind to yourself, warm and understanding toward ourselves. Your inner dialogue is gentle and encouraging rather than harsh and belittling. Another component is recognizing your struggle as one that many go through, and it's part of being human. When we are going through things, it feels as if we're the only ones sometimes, or that life's picking on us, or we're being picked on, or God doesn't love us, or something about us is just wrong. When we do this, we become alone and isolated and increase our suffering. Self-compassion is not self-pity and the woe is me stance, but recognizing that life is about failures and getting up again. So what makes this difficult for some people? Well, as I told you, when you are raised with a sense of feeling inadequate or not enough or being criticized, we internalize that voice. And so then we find it really, that's just normal in our head. So we find it really hard to accept compassion from others um, and then ourselves. So often it's if we've grown up with criticism or other forms of dysfunction in our home of origin. So some people aren't really aware of their internal dialogue, or they have an experience of lot of compassion and don't feel that they deserve it unconsciously. Some feel like if they criticize themselves first, it won't hurt so badly when they are criticized by others, so it's a preemptive strike. Others feel that it's a weakness. It's kind of what I told you in my story in the beginning, that if they don't beat themselves up or kick their own butt, they'd never get anything done. They'd lose their motivation or their standards will really drop. So there's this false belief that the self-criticism motivates us, and it doesn't. So let me give you an example of this so that this sticks in for you. You are um, babysitting if you don't have a child your own, or you have a child that's about 6, and they're so excited to show you how they can ride their bike because they just learned. So they get on their bike with this big grin on their face and start pedaling, and they go for about 15 seconds and then they crash. Really skid their knee, tears, crying. They come running up to you, and you say to that little kid, "Why don't you just give it up? You're never going to get this." Well, of course, we wouldn't say that to this little kid. We'd say something like, "Oh man, that hurts. Come here, let me give you a hug. You know, we all fall down when we're learning how to ride a bike. Just get up again and try. Have a good cry first, and then get up and try again." So we do that to ourselves. We do the first one to ourselves. We make a mistake. We flub up. We do something that we regret. We send a nasty email when we wished we didn't. Or we're sitting there and we're given a talk and we say something silly and we're awash with shame. Rather than sit and go, you know what, it's all right. You're fine. You got this. A lot of times an automatic tape will come on where we're criticizing ourselves. So think about that. Do you think that little kid is more motivated to get on that bike and start trying again if we do the first one? I'll just give it up. You're never going to get it. Or the second example. And that can really hit home. We know how to do that for children, but remember from the exercise in the beginning that that little kid is still in you. And we need to learn to do that to ourselves because that's really what motivates us. So I promised you that you're going to walk away with some real tips for you to use, but I do want to let you know of an upcoming workshop and a special that I have for the attendees of these webinars. It often takes a lot of practice to get to a place where you understand all that goes into this practice. So I want to be able to provide this for those that want to get a little help in speeding up their practice. Many of us have been told to think different thoughts, put affirmations up on the wall, etc., to change the patterns that we go through. And that can help. It's a step in the right direction to changing your thinking. But sometimes shifting the emotions, well, becoming aware of the emotions and shifting the emotions and working in a safe community with others allows this process to sink in deeper and more quickly to advance your practice. So here's a little bit of information. This is coming up April 26th from 9:30 to 1. It's in Sacramento, and really what we want you to walk away with after attending is a firmer foundation of self-worth. There will be humor. There will be joy. This isn't, although big work will happen, this isn't a deep, dark workshop. You're going to walk away with tools to practice self-compassion at a deep level. This is going to connect from the head to the heart so that you have this in you. And we'll do that through experiential exercises, a variety of ways so that we include all your senses and get past that critic that wants to go, this is stupid. Okay, we all have that. So knowledge of the ways our internal dialogue get in our way. So often, many of us walk around and we're not aware of what we're saying to ourselves. We might be aware of a mood. All of a sudden, we feel depressed. It takes some practice to come back and figure out actually what are the emotions behind that and what is the thinking behind that. And when you get a little bit clearer of how that operates inside yourself, you'll gain more control over when that happens and how that happens. So you're going to not only learn to connect on a deeper level with yourself, but you'll be able to carry that out and be able to connect with others at a greater level. So it's going to increase your business. It's going to increase your friendships. It's going to increase the level of connectedness that you have in your love relationship, personal relationship. So we want you to be able to bravely show up just as you are, authentically, with resilience. So when you do get kicked down, which you will in this life, that you'll be able to pull yourself up a lot quicker with the tools that we give you. So I want to let you know that I've got a special for you today. You'll see the link on the webinar here. It's workshop early bird special .eventbrite.com. And if you want to register as being a participant of this workshop, you can go there and save $40 off your registration, which would get your workshop down to $90 for the half the day. And you'll walk away with a lot to improve your life. So, as I promised, I want to get to the tips that you can walk away with today. So, I had you visualize in the beginning of a little child, you as a little child. So now I want you to get an actual picture of you. Get a picture of you where you're young enough that you don't have memories of starting to feel shame. So 2, 3, where this, joyful little kid that's ready to embrace the world is smiling up at you or just looking up at you. So post that picture where you can see it every day. And I'm going to ask you to do something that your inner critic is going to tell you, this is really stupid. This is really not going to work. But if you can trust me, it will make a difference. So talk to that little girl with compassion as we did in the beginning exercise. So I want you to look at the little girl and say, I'm here for you. I love you, and I will always be here for you. I'm sorry that I've been mean. Try to develop a connection with that little girl in you, and you will soon then be able to look away from that picture and look yourself in the eye and be able to say the same things. Again, it's easier for us to do this to children. So remember that your little kid is in you. So that's a beautiful way to do that. If you can get past the critic, that's going to tell you that's not going to work. So the second piece is develop mindfulness. Now, mindfulness practices are really just about noticing what's happening right here, right now, without judgment. So you catch yourself putting yourself down and you say, that's interesting. Now I'm starting to recognize the words that I say to myself. You'll want to be able to just look at that and not shame or put yourself down for putting yourself down. That just puts more suffering on you. So, yeah, we've been doing this unconsciously. So just look at it. Get aware of what you're feeling and thinking without casting judgment. So a good way to do this, I mean, there's lots of mindfulness practices that you hear out there of yoga and meditation. And one that I think is really easy to implement in your day-to-day process is to go to YouTube and type in guided visualizations. And you'll get tons of 10-minute guided visualizations. Find somebody whose beliefs you resonate with, whose voice and manner is soothing to you, and just practice that on a regular basis. What that'll allow you to do is help your brain to settle down enough for you to follow the visualization that somebody's taking you on. Learning that practice will then help you be able to just close your eyes and be quiet and go inward without feeling like you've got, your committee in there that's running havoc and creating chaos inside your mind. So that's a great place to start. Now remember that self-criticism produces cortisol and adrenal, and it kicks in the adrenal stress response. So by doing some of these practices, and the one I'm going to get to next, you're going to induce the relaxation response to your body, which will help include the feel-good chemicals. So when we are self-compassionate, we're changing our physiology to create calmness, centeredness. And one piece of that is a touch. And that can be, getting a hug from somebody special. Or if you want to do this yourself, rubbing your arm, rubbing your skin. When I was first learning this, I visually patted my back because I was whipping it. So I wanted to change and pat my back. My most favorite one that was taught to me by a therapist is to put my hand on my heart. And any of you that know body work are quite aware of the energy that comes from our hands to other parts of our body. And when you put your hand on your heart, that can be a real soothing place. So it's deep breath. Wow. I'm sorry I'm being so hard on you. You're okay. And develop some kind of wording that fits for you. But the hand on the heart is a physical reminder to let the relaxation response come over your body. So, our critic is sometimes an internal representation of someone's voice who raised us. So, the first step is to be aware. Just notice and start keeping track to decide if these messages are true for you. So when you start recognizing, these are great beginning of sentences that will lead you to stop and go, okay, whose voice is that? Who's telling me this? And you generally hear them in should, must, ought to. There's this sense of obligation on, what a good mom will do or what a good wife will do. And your critic is also going to talk in you statements. So you're going to hear you got hung up at work and your daughter has a recital and you can't get to it on time. So you're going to hear, wow, you're not a very good mom. A good mom should be at every recital. If you weren't so scatterbrained, you would have figured this out already. Just another example. You aren't as good as fill in the blank. You shouldn't put yourself out there until you get better. And that relates to a lot of business people that stay stuck. Um, so start recognizing those and write what your critic says to you so that you can develop some responses to that and decide if that's what you want to keep in there or not. So the last one that I say is share the shame. Shame is this feeling that washes over you and you feel bad. It's not that I've done something bad, it's that I am bad. And often when we do something that we feel we could have done better and the critic starts going, the shame washes over us. It's really, really important to share the shame. So with a therapist, a coach, a safe person who doesn't shame you further, like, oh, you did what? Oh my gosh. Now, you don't want those responses or somebody that tries to fix you. Oh, you rock it. That wasn't a big deal. Or maybe next time try. What you want is to be able to share what's happening. I feel small and afraid and I completely just blew it. I completely want to just go to bed and put the covers over my head. I stuck my neck out there and they didn't follow up. It just must be me. And having somebody hear you process that and say, I get it. I completely get it. You just really feel rotten right now. And be able to lift that. I love, this is a quote that you see on here from Brene Brown. And one of the things that she said is the antidote to shame is sharing it. And I'm going to have to agree with that if you have a safe person. So take these tips with you today. It does take some practice and does take some skill. And if you continue to work on these, you are going to start feeling a sense of self-compassion. If you need further help, like many of us do, most often the best work that we do is when we do work with other people. Here's my contact information. You've got my email, my phone number. Feel free to call me, email me with any questions, any thoughts. and my website is there. The wholeheartedness.net is a little bit about our workshop, and you'll get a little bit more sense of what we're doing. I'm doing this with a colleague, Linda Riley, who's also has a master's degree in psychology. It's a coach and a counselor. And remember that if you do feel like this would be a benefit to you, there's a workshop early bird special.eventbrite.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if I didn't get to all your questions or comments, please feel free to call, email me, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.